Hi, I'm Anne Whalley. Welcome to my series on Sewists from around the world. And today we're talking to a gorgeous woman from San Francisco who does sewing lessons, and she is an absolute delight and has the patience of a saint. We want to give a big warm welcome to Isabela from Sewing Lessons in Redwood City, and let's find out a little bit more about the lessons that she runs and the different types of workshops that happen in San Francisco. Welcome to Isabela. Lovely to see you again, Isabela. It's so great to see you via Zoom and on YouTube, and I'm just really thrilled. We met in Sew Expo this year. I can't even believe it. And we were sharing the same booth. So I got to know you quite a bit more than what I normally would because we were very close. So tell me, what have you been doing since we finished the Sew Expo? What have you been up to?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you. It's been an interesting past 7 months, that's for sure. I came back to California right at the end, or actually the beginning of March, and within a couple of weeks, everything changed so drastically. The cases in the Bay Area went up. We were forced to go on lockdown for 3 months.
Oh.
And I have to say the first week was quite nice because I can't even remember when the last time that I took some vacation was. So it was nice to not be, I wouldn't say forced, but not have to think about work because we were forced to just be at home. But having your husband home 24/7 gets old very quickly. And within the first week, I was ready to come back to work. So it posed a lot of different challenges, right? Because how do you take something that's so manual and so hands-on in nature, such as sewing, and pivot that to, say, an online format, right? So it took a lot of thinking on how to make it work. And I had some plans that I had for a long time that finally was like, okay, it's now or never, let's do this. And, you know, if we are to stay in business, let's get creative. And we tried a few different things, and I'm happy to walk you through them.
Oh, I'm glad. We need all the help we can get. And I can tell you, you did some classes at Sew Expo, which was some bag making, and you had people with very different levels of sewing experience, which when you're doing hands-on, it's really, you've got to make sure the ones who know what they're doing get the inspiration and enough get go from it.
Right.
Then the other ones who just really need that little bit of gentle help without making them feel like they're completely lost. It's an absolute art doing those classes. So tell me about the online. Do you still manage to do the extreme levels? How do you roll that out with your workshops that you're doing?
So that took a little bit of a learning curve too, because when you're there in person, you can kind of gauge, okay, that person needs a little bit more help, whereas this one, like you said, needs the inspiration to just keep going, right? And we had, 30 people in class at Sew Expo, and everybody was able to finish it. They all left super happy, which is really exciting. So what I did is I kept it smaller groups for a maximum of 5 students, just to see how that would go, because, you know, it's easier to manage 5 online and still get a lot of, so to speak, one-on-one and see what they're all doing, because we see little tiny squares all over Zoom. So it's important for me to be able to fit everybody in that same screen so I don't have to keep moving and changing my view. So I kept it to a limit of 5 students, and I provided explicit instructions and information on my webpage as far as, you know, who is this class for? If you know how to sew a straight seam, then you can join us. Or, you know, this is for the beginner who wants to be challenged and step up their game. Or this is for someone who's a little bit more advanced.
Yeah.
So it took a few tries to get it just right. I have to say that the first workshop was very interesting because we had still, you know, after having done all of that, background work, we still had people who were very well versed in sewing, and then you had people who still needed a lot of hand holding. So to keep the interest of those who were moving a lot faster while not leaving anyone behind was definitely challenging. But I think given that everybody was in the same boat, we were all going through the same situation of adapting, trying something new, learning new things. I think everybody was really open to the experience and really patient and just glad to be able to do something again, because
Yes.
sewing is so important when you're going through stressful situations, you know, because you're able to calm down and work with your hands and just get that satisfaction from looking at something that you made. You transformed a simple piece of fabric into something that you can wear or give to somebody or use. And there's just so much joy that comes from that. So we tried to focus on the positive, obviously learning from my mistakes so I could always improve the next group lesson and so on and so forth. But I have to say I was lucky enough to work with people that were just super nice to work with.
Gee, it's so right that, you know, we really need to create, when we feel that everything is falling apart, putting something together and seeing it is definitely a spirit lifter. And I really think that we've got to do whatever we can to grab onto that. And it's focusing on something
it gives
different.
you some control over things. When you can't control anything else, you can control what you're making. And that gives me peace.
So tell me, I can see a bag just behind you on the shelf. Is that one of your workshops that you do in the purses?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
So I have actually quite a few bags here. I'm happy to share them with you. But
Please do.
this is one of my bags made out of faux leather.
Oh.
So we go into a lot of different techniques on how to work with this material, how to install a zipper. You know, we focus on adding really nice touches so it really elevates the quality of the work. A nice little lining, a D-ring. So I love this particular project, and everything that you learn working with faux leather can actually be applied to real leather as well, which is nice because it doesn't cost nearly as much to work with faux as it does the real thing. So that's a nice little project. I have a few other ones here that I brought.
Good.
This one is sort of like a prototype.
Wow.
Currently in development. It's a combination of suede and clear vinyl. And it's just a different zipper technique because this is all one piece. So it's quite interesting to see how that comes together.
I love that. I love that one. You can
Thank
find
you.
things.
I'm excited.
That's what I love.
That's prototype number 5. I'm finally happy with that.
I love the fact that the zipper's covered too. It's a really nice designer detail. So
it is. It's a nice little finish.
And look, I can see a bag with straps. What's the story with that one?
Well, this one is actually, it used to be an in-person group workshop. So it's a tote bag with a lot of interesting hardware choices.
Yes.
It's got bag feet and a very cool zipper installation because it allows you to open it up really wide.
Wow.
And we have the zipper end here. And then inside the bag in the lining, we actually have an inset zipper installation. So you learn a lot of different techniques. Again, it's a simple design, like most of my bags are, but I try to focus on great workmanship skills, good quality materials, and great quality, good looking hardware.
Wow. Do you know, I just love that center seam and then that horizontal seam. I really think that's sharp. That's a really sharp look. I love, and also good if you've got smaller pieces because it means you can really get a little bit of, what do you call it, where you try and get as much as you can onto a small piece of fabric. That is amazing.
Right, right. Yeah, you can get really creative with the smaller pieces that you have, with the scraps, if you will. And then it makes a really nice set with this guy here because, again, it has the different seams.
Yeah,
And,
I love it.
yeah, I love it too. So the plan was to take this workshop and other bag making workshops on the road this year. I had plans to go to Philadelphia, New York, Seattle, and Oregon, because it's a really popular workshop here in the San Francisco Bay Area. But then again, with everything that's going on, plans had to change and we had to adapt. I keep telling my husband that I have had to learn things that would probably take me 3 years to learn and master in like 3 months.
Yeah.
So
Where
it
there's
was
a will.
definitely a step. Yes. Step outside of your comfort zone moment and get it done. So I'm in the process of filming a lot of these classes.
Oh, wonderful.
So that I can make them available online from start to finish, still with a lot of hand holding along the way, a lot of good information. And I hope to have it online pretty soon. It's a labor of love, that's for sure.
You know, just looking at the products and how professional they look is very inspiring. And they're projects that don't take a lot of fabric, which is so fabulous, isn't it?
Right, right. And it's really a good entryway into working with more challenging materials, because again, we're keeping the design somewhat simple and really focusing on the techniques and how to work with those materials using your domestic sewing machine, not an industrial machine.
Yeah. And surely we'll all have one of those that we use, and just the needles. And I love the hand holding, because sometimes when you see something and you're doing a pattern, it's all very well to think that's the look I want, but there are a few tricks and tips along the way that just change how you do it, and it's actually simpler in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you can learn it the right way and just take the skills that you learn here and apply it to many other bags or other projects in general that you tackle in the future. So
you're sitting in your studio at the moment, and I know for a fact that you've got a few big wigs that come down and do some workshops. So what's happening with those workshops that you normally do?
One of the big wigs that we work with is Kenneth D. King.
Yes.
He was amazing. You've met him. He's great. And we had a workshop scheduled for September over Labor Day weekend. It was actually one of his very popular workshops. We're going to do a moulage along with a custom dress form for everybody who came and who took his workshop. And towards the beginning of August, we were about to be going through a whole lockdown period again, where the cases were going up, and the Bay Area was put on the state's watch list. And given that New York has always also experienced a large amount of cases, I thought it was best to just reschedule it for January of next year. Yeah. We had so many people flying into town. Kenneth was flying from New York City, and we had grand plans to ensure social distancing, and we were all going to wear masks and all that good stuff, but it just felt right to reschedule it. And hopefully things will be a little bit better come January.
Yeah. I think someone was saying that if you're in a time machine, and you want to go into the future, 1 year to miss would be 2020. Like, skip it.
Absolutely. It's been horrible. And now we're dealing with fires in California. The air quality has been horrible. On Wednesday, it was night for 24 hours. The sky was so dark and so orange because of all the smoke and ashes falling from the sky. I mean, it's been truly horrendous.
As if there isn't enough going on. Oh.
Right. I keep telling everybody I'm trying to really maintain a positive outlook, because you know what? All things considered, we have a roof over our heads. I'm still doing what I love. I have the studio. My kids are doing well. My husband is doing well. But some days I'm just like,
yeah. It's kind of like the air quality is very important. It's bad enough that you have to wear masks, but then if you can't even exercise because it's safer in the house than it is outside.
Exactly. And then with the 2 little kids, it's hard for them to be cooped up inside the house all day long. So,
Are they getting on top of the fire situation? Is that getting better?
I think it's getting better in certain places. It's getting worse in certain places. It's still pretty bad. The air quality has been horrendous over the past couple of days. My car sits outside in our driveway. There's a layer of ash about this thick every time I come out. So it's still pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that with the temperatures going down a little bit, that things will start to improve soon.
Do you get much rain in San Francisco at this time of the year?
No,
No.
no, not at all. No, we don't get much rain, period.
Oh.
But it usually, when it does rain, it's usually during the winter time.
What's that song? It never rains in California. It's obviously
It
there's a
never
reason.
does.
Gosh, I didn't
We need
realise.
Rylas to send some rain down our way, right?
Yeah, she's in Seattle. She's got plenty. I don't know why she doesn't.
Right?
Let's not be
I know.
selfish.
Share some with us, Rylas.
Now, I was also curious about how you worked out your plan for doing your sewing. So how do you run through it? Do you talk about the fabric first? What would people expect in your classroom?
So if you were a beginner, we teach you a very good, strong foundation that you can continue to build upon. I will show you how to operate your sewing machine, how to thread it, how to wind a bobbin, how it works, what the main types of stitches are and what they're used for. We're going to talk about fabrics. We're going to talk about how to cut fabric in a straight line, how to cut fabric with a rotary cutter, which I love. We're going to talk about how to sew straight lines, how to turn corners, how to hem, and they leave with a completed pillow cover. So it's an envelope style closure in the back, and we do all of that in 2 hours. So it's a good, you can sew after this, and then our classes are flexible to where they want to come back every week and we pick a project together, we can do that. They can check in every now and then whenever they need help, or they can come once and never see us again. It doesn't happen very often. They keep coming back, but sometimes it does happen. Now, as far as the bag making classes are concerned, it has a module as a refresher of the most common sewing terms and what they mean. How to sew a straight line, how to turn corners, just very quickly, just so you know exactly what we're going to be doing. And if you need a refresher because it's been some time since you've touched your sewing machine, or you still consider yourself a beginner, I'm here. I'm going to help you. And that's all its module. So whoever doesn't need it can skip it and join me in the next module. But the idea is we're going to talk a lot about the different kinds of faux leather they are. We're going to talk about the weight. We're going to talk about structure of bags. And then I'm going to walk you through step by step the cutting, actually the assembling of the pattern, because it's a PDF pattern that needs to be assembled. The cutting of the fabric, the cutting of the lining, attaching the hardware, attaching a zipper, how to professionally finish the zipper so it looks nice, how to add a lining to the bag, and lots of tips and tricks that I've developed and learned along the way that really elevates the quality of the product, and it takes something that could potentially look handmade and it gives it that professional glow. Because I think, to me, the biggest compliment that I can get is not, did you make that, but where did you get that? And you're like, I didn't get it, I made it.
Yeah. I tell you what, as soon as I saw those bags on the shelf, I thought, they look schmick, really schmick. And the thing that I really think is important to take on board about these lessons with you, Isabella, is that, I don't know about you, but when I was at school and I did a little bit of sewing in, I think, year 10 or whatever it was, I think it's a bit different from your year levels. But really, I think it was when we were about 13 or 14 years of age. The teacher was, well, she wasn't smiling all the time and she was strict, which I'm sure with a whole room full of 30 girls, she had to be. But I never felt like, I felt like I was tied into something that I couldn't jump ahead on. I felt like I don't even want to wear this skirt when I finish the term. It took me the whole term to make a zippered skirt, and it was really tedious. But I just really wanted people to see your smiling face and how calm you are, because that was one thing that I really found sharing a booth with you, 735 at Sew Expo, was the fact that you have such a calming manner and a vibe about you that I would say if I sat in your class, I would feel as if there was no question that would be a problem, that I would definitely get the result that you have, and you would show me how to do it in a way that I would be able to achieve it. So I really think that having the right teacher, and it's not the same teacher you had when you're in, you know, junior school or whatever it is. You have someone who's really wanting you to succeed and to wear a bag and use it as a daily thing, or else even give it as a present. I don't know if I'd part with one if I made one. So I really was so just taken with your manner and your calming influence. And I think that's something that people don't know until they experience it, if you know what I'm saying.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to share this with my husband because he finds me calming, and I'm going to tell him, see, I told you I am very calm and peaceful. But, you know, I think that life is already so chaotic, right? You have to wear so many hats, and you have to be at a certain place at a certain time, and you have kids and home, and it's too much. So to me, sewing is when I center myself. I truly enjoy. I forget about everything that's going on outside. And that's what I want for my students to feel as well, because, you know, be forgiving with yourself. You're learning, you're starting. And I always say, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It takes practice, it takes persistence, and most importantly, you need to enjoy the journey, right?
Yeah.
You will get there eventually, but calm down, relax. We put some music on. I have aromatherapy going, so we really relax. And I probably should serve wine or champagne. That would be nice. Sip and sew. That's an idea. But, you know, calm down and really be present. Enjoy the moment, because I think that's how you're really going to enjoy the journey.
Now, you've got a real passion for sewing. You've got a great passion for teaching. So what lit your sewing fire? What started you on that journey? How did you get to here?
Oh, I hope I don't tear up. It was my grandma, actually, on my mother's side. She had one of those big vintage all metal Singer sewing machines. It was actually a treadle machine that she had converted into an electric machine. And she came from a generation that did everything. She made clothes for her kids. She made things for her home. All of her shelves in the kitchen were all lined beautifully with these gingham liners that she made and hemmed, and then she would crochet the edges. Very nice. And I was always sitting in her sewing room, can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? And one day she let me finally try the sewing machine. And to me, it was love at first stitch. It's always been a part of my life. And I always say that it skipped a generation with my mom. She knows how to sew, but it's not something that she enjoys. She was really pushed to get out of the home, pursue an education, you know, have a career. So it skipped a generation. And when I moved here from Brazil in 2000, I came to go to school. So I took a little bit of a break from sewing. I actually studied accounting, and I did accounting work for a good 13 years.
Wow.
And I had a lovely job. I got to travel the world, meet a lot of people, connect with people from different cultures and backgrounds. But I turned into a person that I vowed never to become. I stopped living. I was existing.
Oh.
I would commute to San Francisco from Redwood City, and it was a 2-hour commute sometimes each way. And I would come home and look at my husband. I didn't have any kids back then. I'd be like, get out of my way. I don't want to talk to you. I need an hour to decompress, or else I will kill you. So I'm like, you know, this is not healthy. This is not how I want to live my life. So I had been teaching people, friends and family, mostly on the side. So in 2013, I decided to take the plunge. I had a guest room in my house converted into a professional sewing studio. And I'm like, you know what? Let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes. I mean, I'm a person who's always studying, taking classes, going to university for fashion design courses. I took a bag making course in Brazil. Let's do it. So I did. And people were like, you're leaving a job where you make a lot of money and you're going to do what? I'm like, yeah, that's me. I know you think I'm crazy, but that's okay. And lucky enough, I mean, I've been blessed that people want to learn how to sew. Sewing is making a comeback. And I always tell everybody that I've never worked so hard in my life, because having your own business is challenging and you're always working, right? You can't stop thinking about it, which I'm lucky enough to do something that I love. So I don't mind thinking about it 24/7. And sometimes I miss my paycheck, I'm not gonna lie, but I just love what I do, connecting with people. I see so many people walk through here. They're like scared of me, of their sewing machine. The sewing machine has been sitting in their closet for years. I'm like, no, calm down. We're gonna, it's a machine. If we break it, hopefully we won't break it, but you can get it fixed, or worst case, we can buy a new one. It's okay. And then to see them go from that to make beautiful things or bags or clothes or whatever in a week or two or a month, and just to experience that kind of joy that comes from, again, touching something that you've made, to me is priceless. So that's my story. Oh, in 2015, when I had my first daughter, I felt the need to move out of my house and into a commercial space. Because I was like, no, now I need some time away. I love you. I love being a mom, but let me step away for a little bit. So here we are.
It's funny how when you come back, you feel as if you've been given the biggest gift of all, and a renewed love. It's quite crazy. Those hours just they add to the experience.
Yes, they don't take away. They just make you a better person. And instead of being miserable or tired or whatever the case may be for 12 hours, you really enjoy them and you're present for, say, 4 hours or, whatever the case may be.
Makes a huge difference. I used to make clothes for both my children, and because I couldn't do a long amount of sewing, so small jobs like bags or small outfits, I used to buy the very smallest pieces of fabric that I'd get on sale, and I would whip up some clothing. And I have to say, the most ridiculous thing I did, I made my daughter a green woolen suit, and I put black flowers on this green. It was a beautiful forest green, a little blazer, and I think she was the most well-dressed girl at the McDonald's birthday party. But even to this day, she still wears those very classic looks. She's not a sloppy Joe. And I think, she's now into textiles and she does clothing and stuff. And I just think what we show our children, we don't realise what ripple effect it'll have in their lives. So we've got
to certainly learn by example more than anything. And look at you, you've inspired her to pursue her own business in fashion design and, like you said, textiles.
Well, it wasn't something that I think you think about when you're doing your final exams and you're doing, you most of the time at 17 or 18, you don't know which way to go, and you've got to go some way. And then if you find the track, she ended up doing, painting, just painting the designs on fabric, and that just then rolled into it. You find your own path. You really do different things to what you can imagine. And I think that's one thing that I think you would probably never think that you were going to teach people how to sew from when you were about 17 or 18, did you?
I know. First of all, to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're 17 or 18, to me that sounds crazy, because your core remains the same, but you mature so much and you change so much and you experience other things. So sounds a little crazy, right? But yes, I kind of knew that sewing was always going to be a part of my life because I've always loved it so much. But to think that I would go into business teaching people how to sew, that thought never crossed my mind in a million years when I was in my early 20s.
So tell me, what did your grandmother say when she saw that you had a real gift? Because she would have noticed it and felt that vibe that you had. What was her reaction to the things you made?
She was such a sweet person, and she loved me so much. I'm the oldest granddaughter. And I hope my cousins don't hear me saying this, but I think I had a special place in her heart. I think even if I was terrible at it, she would probably tell me that I was doing a great job because it was just the kind of nurturing person that she was. She just said, you know, always follow your heart because it's never going to lead you the wrong way. Your mind might be telling you to do something, but your heart and your gut is where it's at, essentially. And I think when it finally clicked, she was no longer alive back then, but when it finally clicked that what I was doing was not what I should be doing because I was just a miserable person because of it, it gave me the strength to fight for what I wanted, even though everybody was telling me, you're crazy. You know, don't leave such a good job, a good career to do this. And I'm like, no, but I have to do it. I know that I have to do it. It was just stronger than me. And I think part of her just always encouraging me to follow my heart was a big part of that.
It's
Yeah, so
a healthier way to live, isn't it?
it is. Absolutely it is. It's joy. It's joy to be able to do what you do every day. It's not easy.
No.
Lots of bumps along the way, but it makes it easier for you to overcome the obstacles. That's for sure.
It develops perseverance, to say the very least.
Yes. Tenacity.
Tenacity. And the other joy is that the fabric that we have are really good for noise insulation, because the more fabric you have, the less you have to worry about whether you can hear the outside noises. Well, that's my theory anyway.
I love that. That's so true.
But I have to do something, Isabella. I'm looking at all the fabric I have, and I've got there are no books in my library shelves because I've got all my wonderful braids that I've collected. What am I, no, I'm 59. So I've done a heap of collecting over the years, and I'm thinking, look, this lockdown is not fabulous, but I can finally touch the fabric and put two and two together. And just the other day I had this, I know you probably would like animal print, would that be correct?
Yes, I love animal print.
I found a bit of jersey and I thought, oh, I kept that because it was big enough for one side and it was quite expensive, the fabric. So I thought, I'm not throwing that away. Well, when I was tidying up the shelves, guess what? I found a fabric that I could put it with that perfectly matched. And I thought, it's there in the filing cabinet, but we need the time to saturate ourselves, whether it be working out what we're going to do with our lives, what we're going to do with our fabrics, and how we can minister and mentor people so that they can catch that calmness and that creativity, because everyone does things with their own vibe, and I just think that is just the most exciting part about being a sewing person.
Right. And it's never hoarding if it's fabric, shoes, bags, and sewing machines. When the pandemic hit and I had all this fabric for masks and interfacing and elastic, I told my husband, you see, I was getting prepared. I was not hoarding stuff. Here I am. I'm using it. I'm helping. So yes, definitely being forced to slow down, right? And really reassess what's important to you, what's not important to you, what you can do without. And then just finding the joy in the pieces that were perhaps hiding in your closet or in your drawer and just really bringing it back to life. That's awesome. So
Is.
I went through my stash too.
Yeah.
And whatever was not speaking to me anymore, I donated it, brought some here to the studio where we share fabrics with our students. And I just got a whole bunch of inspiration from other pieces, and some pieces I still love. I don't know what I'm going to do with them just yet. But even if you're petting your fabric and just going like this, it just brings you joy.
It does.
However weird it may seem.
It's the whole thing, the planning, the dreaming. It's really putting legs on the dreams and giving you even if it doesn't work out, it doesn't really matter because you've always had the dream. So you've got to see if
Right.
it's going to work out.
Oh my God, I totally understand where you're coming from because it happens to me too. I think about it and I'm like, yeah, that's going to look really good with that. Oh my God, yeah, that's meant to be a jacket. And whether it's going to be turned into a jacket or not, I don't know. But you know what? It's nice to think about it.
You know,
For sure.
I'm sure you've had a whole wardrobe full of clothes that you've made over the years that you loved wearing, and then the Marie Kondo, you get rid of, you know, the excess, the ones you're not wearing. And then they have this thing called, which I've only just found out about, is called the Kondo regret. And I thought, oh, I have that. Because
Yeah.
in my 20s, I had all those wonderful 80 patterns, that the designer patterns. Why did I
Mm-hmm.
give them away? I couldn't fit into them. But apart from that, those
Right.
designs were amazing.
Absolutely. So that's why it's not hoarding when it comes to fabric and your handmade goods too. So I used to sew a lot for myself before kids. I would say a good 80% of my closet was me made at that point. And once you have kids, your body changes. You don't longer have time to sew for yourself, yada, 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 which is all okay. But I still have a really hard time parting with those garments. I
Mm.
know it's not going to fit me again. I'm okay with that. But you know what? I remember every single stitch, love, sweat, tears that went into every single one of those seams. And I'm like, I don't know if the person who gets it is going to appreciate it enough. And, at some point I'm going to have to let it go. But for now, it's sitting in bags, unfortunately, which, yeah, sounds really bad now. And I should probably let somebody enjoy it. So maybe that's a plan.
It's a bit tricky. Like, I have to say, I do take my designer buttons off. I've paid a fortune for them, and if I give something to Goodwill, actually a lot of it I will sell when I do my talks, because I think, look,
Mhm.
and they've got the buttons and the zips on them. But if they're so bad that I'm taking the buttons off and the zips, that's probably more of a rag than it is to Goodwill, because no one's going to
Right.
want that. I really like to let my clothes get adopted so that I know they're going to be continually worn. If someone loves it, it's
Yeah.
great. That's a good home.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's true.
And we want
That's
them
true.
to
And
be
I love
comfortable.
your clothes. I
Oh
love
my,
your style.
oh. Well, I
Mm.
really think it's time for this new age. I feel as if I'm going to step into a different zone completely now. I just feel I need to do something a little bit more daring, because I think this virus is making me think, if I don't do it now, when will I do it?
That's true. The
I'm not
time
sure.
is now.
I'm not sure if Instagram's ready for it, but anyway, I'm just going to run hard and see what I can do. And that's the fun part, is that we can always learn, and learning from different people is fantastic. I mean, you've been in, I'm sure you're part of the classes that you run at your studio too, don't you? Do you
Yeah,
become,
no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I always say I learn something new every day, whether it's sewing related or just life in general. And I'm a believer that if you're learning, you're evolving. If
yeah,
you stop learning, you're sort of like rotting away in a way. So I'm always taking classes outside of the studio as well. I'm currently taking a textile class
ooh,
that I am loving. We're burning samples. I love that.
yeah,
Um, and it's just really nice to be able to share that thing in common, where, other people pet their fabric too. So I don't feel as weird about that. And just getting to know new to me fabrics and the possibilities about them. So yes, I'm always trying to learn, whether it's with my students or new techniques, new ways of going about that particular technique, or just really adding to my noggin. I love that.
And then you get to share that within the classroom, because once it's in your filing cabinet, out it comes when, it depends on what the person's going to choose for the fabric, what style they're going
Mm-hmm.
to do, and what kind of vibe they have. Their personality can all be
Yes,
in one bag, whether their lining's a
absolutely.
little bit loud, whether it clashes with the outside. You know, I'm very inspired looking at your bag because I have a large collection of suede and leather coats that I have collected over the years from thrift shops and upselling, and I always thought to myself, oh my gosh, they take up so much room. And I think, oh, I could make some bags out of that. And I'm looking at your patterns and I'm feeling like I actually have the leather and I've got the beautiful suede, and I think I can really take a chance because I don't need much of the fabric. I don't need to cut up too much of the coat. Who knows what kind of bags I'm going to make. But I was looking at your bags and that's what made me feel like I need to chat with you, and I feel as if I might have to do a class and see how I go.
I would love to have you join me. That would be an honor.
And then I could seriously learn how to put those little things on the bottom of the bags, because I have made a few different things. And yes, I'm always putting those bags on the ground and it wears out the bottom of your bag. And that makes it look like an old bag before its time. So I'm
the bag feet are awesome. And there's also a little trick down here that adds a little bit of structure to it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I am a structured bag girl. I am not the one that would wear that sloppy bag. Bruce has found out that the hard way over the years. He bought me something for Christmas once and it was a bag. And it was quite a few years ago. And I thought, oh, that's lovely. And then the next day I said, is there any way we could swap that at the shop? Because really, I'm never going to wear that bag. And he said, yeah, let's go. So we went in and he let me swap it over with something with more structure and strength, because I like a strong bag because I do carry a lot. And the guy was great. And as we walked out, Bruce said to me, this bag is more you. And I thought, oh, that's lovely. But I didn't want to ruin Christmas, you know, how we do.
Yeah.
So what could you offer as a word of inspiration or encouragement for the listeners all around the world who are listening to you today? What do you think would be something that they could just go home with and think, right, I'm going to try that and I'm going to apply that to my life?
I think that overall is to forgive yourself and allow yourself the grace to learn something, and know that it may not look like what you envisioned at first, but if you work on it, it's going to get better. And, you know, we tend to be very critical of ourselves, the stuff that we make, or we find a tiny little defect or it's not perfect. Guess what? The stuff you buy at the store is not perfect either, but we never really see that because we assume that it was done by professionals and therefore it must be 100% perfect. It's not. So be forgiving with yourself. And I think my biggest takeaway from it all is self-care, or so-care.
Yes.
When you take the time to feed your soul, your heart, you're a much better person to those around you, your family, your friends, your co-workers, whatever the case may be. So taking the time to do something that you enjoy, whether it's sewing, painting, cooking, it really feeds your soul. And I think that's so important, especially in a world where everything is so digital.
Yeah.
Just really work with your hands and allow yourself the time to learn and the grace to learn.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Isabella. I just feel as if it's a lot easier to talk to you via Zoom, because that's a darn long flight from Australia through to Seattle. Oh my gosh. But we will be flying over when it's all safe to do so again. And I so look forward to visiting you in your studio, and we'll tee up a time and do a walkthrough and do a course or something while I'm there.
I'd love to have you guys over. Take you shopping around the area. I know some good fabric spots, and just to see you guys again and just hug. You know, instead of virtual hugs, just hug. Yes, and we will go back to that fairly soon.
I hope so. I think we've been through the time zone of how far we've got so far. I never would have thought it would have gone this long, but we're close to the end. They're working on the vaccines because it's for the world. It's not just for one country. It's for everyone.
For humanity. Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the first time that we're all on the same page, where we're all trying to find
It's definitely an
the solution.
equalizer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But maybe in the end, we're going to be closer together, better people because of it. I don't know. There's got to be a lesson for us to learn there somewhere, and hopefully we will.
Well, it's going to do something, isn't it? We're here for
Yes.
for the journey. We can't. I think I'll hop off now. It's I'm over this. It's just too much. But yeah, it's definitely. If it wasn't for sewing, I'm not sure I'd be okay. I really don't think so.
If it weren't for sewing, I don't know that my husband would be alive. Because, you know, being in lockdown with him for so, I love the guy, I really do, but it was challenging. So my sewing breaks, I think, saved our marriage, because I would come out feeling like a much better person. But yes, just keeping yourself sane, positive, and like I said, feeling in control over something, even though everything else is like in disarray.
Yeah.
So.
I had a lovely friend who once said, I don't watch the news. I don't sit down and watch all the documentaries about all the sadness in the world. She said, I'm going to do what I can for the people that I need to do it for. And I'm not going to waste hours upon hours of useless tears that, you know, you feel empathy, but are you actually doing anything other than feeling paralyzed? And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I'm going to adopt that one. So I catch up with the news, but I try not to sit too long in that area and keep on it. I'm sure if something really bad's going to happen, Bruce will tell me, and just try and do something positive and helpful. And sewing is helpful for me, and hopefully chatting with you today, Isabella, that people will find that helpful, and that they'll get back to their machines and make some either small bags, large bags, do a couple of courses, and just broaden the thought process so that we can cope and get through this very strange time.
One step at a time.
Yep.
One seam at a time, little by little.
And make sure your bobbin's full. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much for having me. It's so lovely to see you. Your smile brightens up a room.
Oh.
And I feel so very blessed to be here with you today.
Thanks so much, Isabella. Lovely chatting with you again. And can't hug, we'll have to hug. We'll just have to do a virtual hug. Yeah. We'll see you another time, and hopefully in real life.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, the bobbin's empty. It's been great catching up with Isabella from Sewing Lessons in Redwood City. So lovely to see her again, and you just get the vibe from Isabella that nothing is a problem, and she is just so lovely to work with. And I hope her online workshops go well, especially making those gorgeous little zippered leather bags, and I think I might have to join in myself. So we talked about doing things that really speak to your heart, and that's one thing that's my passion, that people take their sewing from good to great when they choose the fabric and the styles that work for them and make them feel great when they wear them. Don't forget to subscribe to this series on interviews with sewists from all around the world. Follow me on my sewing blog, annwhalley.com. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I'm always doing some sewing and giving you some sewing tips and tricks, and inspiring not only myself, trying to be inspired to keep going, but also hopefully to get you inspired to get to your machine and make the clothes that you love to wear. I'll see you again soon. Lovely having you in my room today.